They make sure that people are literally raised from birth to be soldiers. They got plenty manpower. Not to say that they need them, but they got plenty manpower. It's like, yo, people like Obama, when they come out and say, we're the best, we're the strongest army, that's a lie. We're not the strongest army. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even have the same type of mentality that these people have. All right? When you see them marching in sync, you ever seen them videos where them people march together? You ever seen the North Koreans and the Russians, how they march and they feet be like right there? You don't see no foot off. It's like they're all one brain. They all operate as one body. All right? You don't see that in the military here. You don't see that in no military in the West. You understand? The closest that you'll see to the people who do that is the FOI. They're the closest that you're going to see to the niggas who actually be in sync when they march or a turn or a face or... Nah, them North Koreans, they look like they all copied and pasted. They all, I'm not talking about they looks. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm saying like when they marching, all they shit is copied and pasted straight to the T. Why? Because it's a whole different level of discipline. Have you ever seen them motherfuckers train? You ever seen them train? They train different. Them niggas is fighting concrete and shit. Like they all kind of, they submerging themselves in buckets of ice. Themselves in buckets of ice. You know what I'm saying? And all kind of shit. It's a whole different group of beings. So my point is, if and when this World War III were to happen and you were facing thermonuclear war, let me tell you something. If you were to ever see a bright flash, this just if you care about surviving some shit, all right? If you were to ever see a bright flash off in the distance, well, if you already see the... Well, if you already see the bright flash, okay, off in the distance, first of all, there's a chance that you can survive. Because if you don't see it, chances are you was too close anymore. All right. And you have to take into consideration something else also. Same Fat Boy or Enola Gay situation where they come through and drop this bomb and try to test it out on these civilians. No, they already know what the fuck these weapons do now. They done amplified it. All right. They done took the power to a whole different degree, a whole different level, literally a different degree. All right. So anybody that was in a detonation area in Hiroshima was incinerated within seconds. That's why when they tell you, oh, 300,000 people died, or then they say, well, 500,000 people died, or 800,000 people died, you probably have to multiply that by 3 because you're dealing with the fact that you can't even account for most of the people that was there because most of the people that were there were right there when you dropped the bomb. You understand? So they're not going to count those people. You can't find those people. There's no record of those people because even what would have been records was destroyed through the bomb. So they just throwing out little numbers to make it sound like, oh, it's just 300,000. No, you probably killed millions of people that day. Not to mention the fact that not everybody died from the blast. Not everybody died from the blast. Other people died from the radioactive effects and the poison that happened after that. You understand? Skin boiling off, the burns that they received, the fallout causes all kind of poison and radioactive responses in human beings. So there's a lot of people that died that way, but some people survived it. But some people were miles and miles away from the bomb. They were miles and miles away from the detonation center, and their skin still was boiling off of them. You understand? So what I'm saying is if you happen to see that light in the distance, let me tell you what it look like. It'll look like it's daytime, and it gets like 3 times the light or the brightness of daytime. Now, it's not oversaturated or overexposed in the daytime because if it were that way, you will all have to wear some type of protective sunglasses. So you're not dealing with a blown out environment during the daytime. If your environment goes from normal to blown out, let me tell you what just happened. A nuclear weapon just went off, okay? Because it's like, okay? Because it's like opening up 1,000 suns in the sky is what is. He's quoting the betas, the Buddhas, and the types of weapons that they knew about, all right? So if you see that, here's your best bet. Which I would tell people that already know about this type of stuff. Where are the sewers in your area? Do you know where any of the sewers are? Because the first thing you're going to need to do, if you're close enough, is survive the blast radius. And that ain't, with these types of weapons, it ain't going to take long for it to reach you. You understand? Now, the moment that you see that light, that's the death toll begins then. All right. As soon as that light goes off, that's the death toll. The death toll done already went up 50,000 within the next 5 seconds. 50,000 people die in 5 seconds. And then after that, the next minute, All right, you looking at up to 200,000 to 1,000,000 people that pass away within that minute. All right, one of these weapons can take out 100 million people. One of them. All right, anywhere from 10 million to 100 million, depending on the caliber. But again, this is 3,000 times the power, okay, or the potency of the bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So what are you dealing with? You're dealing with the fact that you have to survive, first of all, the blast radius. And if you don't have any shelter underground, you will have to find some type of way, and you have to do all of this quickly to shield off your home, right? And you have plastic, tape, cardboard, whatever, seal up the cracks and anything that can let air in or dust or debris in, because when that dust comes through, all right, it's going to be poisonous and it starts to kill whoever is exposed to it. All right. So what I'm saying is people don't know about this, but you should be prepared in some way, shape, form, or fashion to survive the outskirts of a weapon, because not all the time are the people right there in the detonation zone. But for everybody that will be in the detonation zone, there's nothing you could do. So where will be the detonation zones? Right there in the middle of downtown Atlanta. They will be. If you notice, you watch all the movies they show you, it will be right there in the middle of New York. Okay, they'll drop it right where they know everybody, the highways is there, you know, all of the commerce is happening. They know where all of the people are commuting. They see all of that. They watch all of that. So that's where they will hit first. They ain't going to hit somewhere out in the rural areas where they know it's only like, you know what I'm saying, a couple thousand people that live there. But if they know it's millions of people funneling through the city, that's where they hit it at. And millions of people will die in seconds. You feel what I'm saying? And that's how. It's unfortunate, but this is what they plan. They do. Why do you even have nuclear weapons? And why haven't these weapons been outlawed? You understand? Why does each country have nuclear weapons? Well, they would like for you to believe it's only for population. It's not only for population. They have those weapons for extraterrestrial threats as well. You know what I'm saying? So if in the event and when they go to thermonuclear war, it was probably sabotage. Okay, meaning they knew that their rule was up. They knew that there was a pending threat that was going to remove them from their throne. And they said, fuck it, we're going to destroy everything before this happens. That was probably sabotage. Because again, if they're saying no one wins a nuclear war, then why do y'all have nuclear weapons? No, you know that the person who has the most preparation, all right, as far as how to evade, they'll win. You know that the person who has the most powerful, most potent weapons, they'll win. You feel what I'm saying? So what do you mean by that, Faise? Well, there are certain types of devices and mechanisms that they develop that if there is an ICBM or intercontinental ballistic missile that comes through, which Russia has one called the SS-18 Shaitan. Go literally look it up. The SS-18 Satan. One of the most powerful weapons on the planet Earth. Russia has it. Okay? And if this weapon were to be launched to the U.S., all right, there are certain types of devices they can use that could target that weapon midair and disable it. You understand? Then you have certain weapons like the Israelis have where they can shoot them down from the distance with lasers to shoot down the weapon or cause it to explode in the air, as opposed to civilization, right? So all of this is to say this. These weapons that you're using now, that these humans have now, they old weapons, because the same type of blast that happened in Hiroshima happened in what? And it was the same type of escape route that they had to take through the mountains. The whole same type of procedure. You got to evacuate first. You feel what I'm saying? If it was just some bricks falling on people's houses, just don't drop the brick on light. And they do explode. And you ain't going to just be able to sit out no nuclear weapon explosion. Are you with me? So that's what was meant. It wasn't saying Lot's wife turned back to look at the fire. No, it meant she lagged behind. And because she lagged behind, she got caught with the blast radius that was recorded to be the blast in the Quran. So you have to ask yourself, how the fuck did they come out with some shit like that way before? Literally, what was this? 1400, almost 1400 years before, because that's like 632 when you're dealing with the actual first recording of the recitation. 1400 years before there's a nuclear weapon developed, and they know what nuclear weapons did. The weapons of the gods were recorded way before human beings had their hands on them. Exactly. Same way UFOs was recorded way before there was a NASA. All right. The shape of the planet Earth was recorded way before Galileo and all the rest of his chums. We already knew that the planet wasn't a flat disk. You understand? The only ones who didn't know that was motherfuckers who thought that the world was the earth, which means the Eretz. And that Eretz was speaking about the land that they were standing on. And because the land that they were standing on was flat, they thought the earth was flat. Because from their perspective, all they can see as the tiny human beings that they are is just a flat plane. Well, then you ask yourself, how's the earth flat and you got oceans that go miles and miles deep? That's not a flat plane. How's the earth flat and you got hills and valleys and creeks and all this other? That's not flat. You thinking flat, you say, well, how come I don't see curvature? You're not large enough to see curvature. What are you talking about? You can't see anything beyond. And if you did see curvature, you're probably looking at a hill. Just because you see a curvature, go stand up at the bottom of the summit of Mount Everest and try to see up toward the peak. You're looking at something that's not flat at that point. But does that mean that the whole planet is in the shape of Mount Everest? No, it doesn't. It just means that from your perspective at that point, that's all you can see. You understand? So that's what it is. But some people knew that science. Some people said, nigga, look at the sun. Yes. What shape is it? It's spherical. Okay, so how the fuck does the earth just so happen to be a flat disk? Think about it. Then you ask them, where's the earth sitting? What do you mean, where's the earth sitting? Where is it? It's fixed. I asked what it is. Where is it? Because there goes the sun, correct? Yes. All right, where's the earth? They can't give you an answer. Because if you're going to tell me that the earth is a flat plane, then you're telling me that the earth is a thing. And in order for something to be a thing, it has to be an energetic configuration, meaning all these different particles and molecules came together to form it, which means these particles and molecules were pushed from somewhere or yielded from somewhere, which would be space. Because if this earth comes together in whatever shape you try to tell me it is, it has to be somewhere to be an earth. He said, then they try to say, it's an infinite plane. And I ask you, how do you know it's an infinite plane? Who measured it and said, oh, this bitch, infinite? How do you get the measurements for infinite? That's why I be telling y'all, all these people there, Bro Sanchez, all these, they haven't somebody who has right knowledge and knows how to ask the proper question. I'm not saying I believe anything that anybody's saying. I'm saying that if you're going to tell me this bitch is flat, and then in the same breath going to say you don't have to prove a flat earth, but the round earthers have to prove a round earth, well, then guess what? You don't make sense. Because just as the round earthers have to prove the bitch is round, you got to prove the bitch is flat. How the fuck you going to have a scientific conversation talking about something I don't got to prove it? Ain't that convenient? Say, it became their motto, y'all. It became their slogan. Say, we don't have to prove a flat earth. You can't prove a flat earth. You can't do it. Anytime you thought you could do it, all you were doing was playing on how optical illusions work, diffusion works, all the different things that happen on a natural, that science has to explain. Notice that they use science to explain everything except what science has taught about the shape of the earth and gravity and all this other. Say, no, it's not gravity, it's density. I say, well, what makes you think these two things are not both phenomena that go hand in hand? Because if I'm falling, why do I accelerate? If it's only space, why when I fall do I continue to accelerate at a constant acceleration? Why does that happen that way? You go, look at what are you talking about? I say, 9, 8 meters second. Why does that happen? Why does it happen? And they can't explain it. They say, well, you're just dense. You're heavier than the air around you. Okay, well, the air that's composed that way is heavier than the air around itself. How heavy is the air itself? Why doesn't it fall? What causes for buoyancy to work how buoyancy works? You know what I'm saying? This is where you get into a whole different conversation. Nigga, did you pay attention in science at all? Because you say it's density, but then you have to look at all the other factors that would, if it's just density, why are we falling downward? Why don't we fall upward? You understand? Or if it's just if the air is heavier, why is there a direction? Explain that. Explain why do I fall toward the earth? Why don't I just fall in another direction? What makes it be that we're falling toward the earth? That would mean that you're saying that we're falling downward. Well, if we're falling downward, which is the same thing that the ancient people used to say, that toward the earth is down and upward to the heaven is up. All right. If we're falling downward, why is there a location? In order for there to be a location of down, there has to be a position of the plane, which brings us back around to the first question. Where is the plane? And where is the plane facing? Are you with me? Simple. They can't answer this. They're like, okay, well, we got a firmament. We got a firmament? Yes. How do you know? It's in the Bible. Oh, it's a religious thing. I get why I understand now. Because you're going based off of stories where people didn't understand how to chart the planet. They didn't know what they were talking about. The same reason why they said the earth and the moon, all these things are fixed. Nothing's going to change. And then to this day, your planet is speeding up in its rotation. The moon is further away from the planet Earth than it was 2,000 years ago. I guess they didn't know that was going to happen. All these things are still changing. Things you said wasn't going to change. The firmament or the rakia, right? Okay, I said, well, who went up there and proved that there was a firmament? They said, what do you mean? I said, who went up there and proved that there was a firmament? Meaning, who went up far enough to bump their head and be like, boom, oh, shit. You say, what? We can't go no further than this. Who was a flat earther that went up there and proved that? They said, well, they had a go-fast rocket. I said, wrong, incorrect. That wasn't even a flat earther's rocket. That was somebody else's rocket that was sending this shit up to take pictures of and video of the planet. You understand? And then you get into the D-spin mechanism and all the different sounds that it makes. You say, nigga, that wasn't no firmament. That was a sound. Why didn't it just fall back down? You feel what I'm saying? No, it's all games. They don't know what they're talking about. So it's like, okay, which one am I supposed to listen to? The person that has more science to prove that this shit is obloid, spheroid, or the motherfucker who don't even know what the fuck this is? You understand? Or oblong spheroid. I asked them, what's the model for flat earth? They don't have a model. He said, you don't have no model. No, there's not one. No. So then where are you getting these pictures and maps and shit from? You just pick one? Which one is the one? You feel what I'm saying? This is the point. And when you ask these questions, they get mad at you. Why they get mad at you? Because nobody can go up against right knowledge. Right knowledge says, if you're right, then you know. If you're right, you know you're right. You don't believe that you're right. If you're right, you know you're right. And how do you prove that you're right? You have evidence or something that you can show to say, yes, I'm right. That's right knowledge. And right knowledge knows when they don't know. So you won't be wrong. That's right knowledge. So you ain't gonna say some shit you don't know. That's right knowledge. Okay, where did the firmament come from? God created it. Oh, that makes sense. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, because if I go to the scientists and ask them how did the atmospheres of the planet form, they tell me a whole process of how the biosphere came together. They'll tell me about the whole process. And they'll tell me about how the different atmospheres operate differently. They'll tell me about the different pressures and how oxygen is held in closer to the earth than it is as you go further out. There's less oxygen. Why? There's no need oxygen up there, because whoever constructed this, or however it was constructed to perform or to sustain life, it was for people to be on the earth or in the air up to a certain point. You don't see eagles trying to fly out into space. There's no oxygen out there for them. Are you with me? So then what do you mean this firmament is here? Then another question is, how is the sun rising and setting or appearing to do so? They say it's just moving around. How? Magnetism. How? What do you mean? That's not enough. What keeps it in position? All right. And so are you telling me that it's moving because of the earth? What is causing the sun to move and stay fixed in position? What is it on? What's the track? And if you're telling me it's believe in centripetal force, which guess what? That's gravity. That's gravity. No, don't where you going. That's gravity. That's gravity. You believe in a force that can pull something to itself to orbiting around us. How? Through a force called gravity. Give it a rest. Give it a rest. I know you're tired. You got to give it a rest. Eventually, you got to be like, well, is it possible that they could have brought me into a whole different dogma, all right, on purpose to confuse me more? Is it possible that flat earth becomes a conspiracy on purpose because it's not just flat earth no more at that point. What it becomes, the mountains are no longer mountains. So what are they? They're giants. They're giants. That did what? That died. And what happened to them? They turned into crystals and rocks. Okay, word. All right, so explain to me the process of how carbon goes crystal. What? No. Explain to me the process of how does carbon turn into crystal? I don't know what this man is talking about. You don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. How does a motherfucking carbon being die and turn into rock? What are you talking about? If they died as a carbon-based being, then that carbon is broken down. That flesh is broken down by decomposes like everything the fuck else. They were petrified. So being scared make you turn into rock? No, stop it. You can look outside in the sky right now and see clouds that look like faces. You don't think nature might have a few rocks that look like a human being? You don't think so? You don't think there may be a mountain here or a mountain there that look like a motherfucking hip right there? You don't think there's a hill somewhere that might look like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, that's somebody's butt. It's shapes. You're made of the same types of shapes. You was a child looking at shadows on your wall, said that's a monster. It wasn't nothing but the trees. But to you, it was an octopus monster reaching into your room to come and get you because of your imagination and your ability to put image to something, Tall. You feel what I'm saying? So what happens then? So now we don't know the science of how the plates move. We just lost that. There's no such thing as a tectonic plate. And I say, okay, if there's no tectonic plates that could crash together and form these mountains over time, all of that process is out the window, right? Yes. What causes earthquakes? I guess the planet sneezes or some shit. We got to be able to stop it. What causes earthquakes then? Why is there seismic activity at all if there's no shifting of Earth's crust? And is it not Earth's crust that is recorded to cause these mountains to form? You understand? Over time, of course, there's long periods of time, but they'll tell you there's another mountain forming here. Or these ridges are here now. And it's like, fuck science. Because you was on YouTube, I'm supposed to fuck science because you just went on YouTube and listened to Bro Sanchez or B.O.B. or whoever the fuck out here confusing people. Then you had a nigga that did the video say, what am I looking at? Well, what planet are these? He said, these ain't planets. These are what do you call them? What were they? Pots or saucers or some shit. He said, where's this at? He said, this isn't nothing but a solar panel and the sky. He said, you're being fooled. I said, what was his point? What was his point? You didn't make a point. All you did was make a point that things look like shit. Again, ain't but so much shit that shit can look like. You only got but so many colors to choose from. I told you that yesterday. You got from black to white. All right, Roy G. Biv. Ain't but so much shit that shit can look like. You feel what I'm saying? Why do you think people got types? You say, this is my type, or she my type, or he my type. Because there ain't but so many types of types. For even with human beings, as special as we think we are, it's like everybody's a fucking type of some sort. We fall into some type of, most people, fall into some type of personality category and your looks category, your height category. Ain't but so many heights. You feel what I'm saying? Okay, somewhere along the line, you can find something in there to say, this nigga look just like me. Bro, Faise, I saw somebody look just like you. I wouldn't doubt it when you got 9 billion people on the planet. You know what I mean? I'd be surprised you tell somebody, Faise, I saw somebody look the exact opposite of a human being. Then we talking, said, what color were they? It was blue. All right. And even then, what? It still falls within the spectrum of the colors. So what are you saying? That things look like shit. Okay, things look like shit. And then what? Then you ask these people, why is it that when you send a rocket out into space, which they've done multiple times, and they had cameras like the Go Fast rocket, why would you send a rocket out into space? After a certain point, you see blackness. He said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm asking you, why do you see blackness when you go out of the earth? Because if this were a flat plane, listen, pay attention. If this were a flat plane, that at the edge of that plane, there's an ice wall. Okay, listen to what I'm telling you. If this were a flat plane, that on the outskirts or the edge of that flat plane was an ice wall, the higher you go up, where they sent that rocket, right? Think about it. If they sent this rocket out into space and it's traveling miles into space or kilometers into space or hundreds of thousands of feet into space, right? At a certain point, two things should happen. One is it should hit the dome at a certain point. It should hit a dome. And if it hits the dome, just based off of how science will show us or math will show us that you're dealing with a dome as an actual shape, all right, the further you get from the center of the dome, the lower the cave or the concave goes or the actual sides or the edges of that firmament or that dome will go. Meaning if you on the outside of the dome, all right, or on the outskirts of it, if you're in Antarctica where they say the dome was supposed to be connected at this ice wall, if you send a rocket up, it shouldn't make it but like a few feet. It should crash as soon as you send it up there into whatever the dome is. But if you're somewhere in the center of the dome and you send it up, the furthest you should be able to go, you'll still be able to go as far up as you can for that dome. The highest point is in the center. You understand that? I hope I ain't confused nobody. The highest point of a dome is in the center. Same thing with a cone or a pyramid. So if the highest point of a dome is in the center, whatever this rocket went up to, if you were to tell me that it hit any part of a dome, then I should be able to see the ice wall. Because if it goes to the highest point, then from that highest point, I'm able to have an angle of what's called depression. In my line of sight, I'm able to have an angle of what's called depression in my line of sight right in the center of the fucking dome for some reason. All right, which would have meant that where they were in the North Pole, which is where the flat earthers say that the North Pole is in the center of the fucking plane, right? You go to the North Pole and you release this. They weren't in the North Pole. They were somewhere in Texas, some motherfucking where. But okay, let's say they say they were in the North Pole. They sent the shit up all the way to the point where you can't go any further in the dome. All right. After you get to that highest point, y'all, with your line of sight, you should be able to see the actual ice wall circling the planet. But you don't see that. What do you see? You see more blue, as in more water and more light interacting with the atmosphere of the planet. Okay. And you see black on the other side of it. If you see black at all on the other side of this blue, you're dealing with a curved plane. Are you with me? Because the only way you can see black is if you were looking at the edge of the plane. Does it make sense yet? The only way you can see black from that high up is if you were looking at the edge of a plane. So if you're going to tell me that it hit the roof, all right, so then that roof is high enough that I should be able to see the edge of the plane. And when I see the edge of the plane, what should I also see? The ice wall. And that's the only way I should see black on the outside of that to say that this is where the planet ends. And on the other side of that is blackness. And everything else is this clear as dome that you say is supposed to be sitting on top of us. Simple science and simple math. But that's not what you saw. You saw blackness and more blue. And that means that your plane is curving. It's warping. All right? So the further out you look, they say there's no horizon. That is a fact. All right? Well, that isn't really a fact. Let's check it. There is a horizon, but it's based off of where you're standing. So your horizon is based off of your view. All right? So if there's a horizon at all, then that means that there's only human beings can see but so far. Up to like 3,000 miles. Human beings can't see beyond that. Okay? So if you were to get a telescope, guess what you can see? You can see beyond that. But show me where the telescope can see to the ice wall. Show me where the telescope can see to the ice wall, and we'll be quiet. And I mean, you have to literally be standing in the center of the North Pole. All right. Get a telescope, zoom it into the to the ice wall. We don't have a powerful enough. You don't have a powerful enough brain. Because what the fuck? They said, look at the telescope. We can see the boat. The boat's supposed to be going up. It's optical illusion. Is that magic? It's an optical illusion. Same reason why when you driving up the street and it's hot, You see the little haze over the street? That ain't no real haze right there that's obstructing the actual street. This is an optical illusion where light is interacting with the actual reflection itself and the heat itself. So you see, the street is disappearing. The street ain't disappearing. It's still there, I promise. If you just drive up, you will see this. You will see the street. Say the boat isn't supposed to. We're supposed to still be able to. We shouldn't see the boat. You're right. You don't see the boat because after a certain point, you can't see. Your eyesight goes but so far. So get a telescope. Yes, show us that there's a telescope, like we didn't know. And then we go look at the telescope. Okay, well then I know that there are telescopes to this day that can see all the way to stars and planets. So I know that the distance between where we at and them damn stars and planets is way farther than the distance between the North Pole to the South Pole. If you're telling me that the South Pole, listen, the South Pole is a ring around the planet. I'm going to try it one more time. You're telling me that the South Pole is a ring around the planet. And I say, when the hell did they tell you that that's how magnets work? What are you talking about? It's always what am I talking about when I'm talking about something. You notice that, right? When did they tell you that magnets work that way? For what I remember about simple science with magnets is there's a North Pole, there's a South Pole. Y'all probably remember this. This is good. Remember these days where we were learning about magnets as a child or children, they would give us a list. Hey, look at this one. This is the South one. Look at this one. They even color coded it for us. They say, look at the North one is the red and the South one is the blue. And they say, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, if you turn it this way, it's going to push away from each other. That's called repulsion. You turn it this way, you put it's called attraction. You say, wow, this is amazing. And you got to play with the magnets. They brought out different magnets. It was great. It was a great day. And you say, look, this one magnet sticks this way and one magnet sticks the other way. When did they give you a magnet that you sit one in the center and then you put another one, a ring around it, and that's how the magnet stays together? When did that happen? That is not how magnets work. That's not how magnetism works. So if you have a South Pole that happens to be Antarctica, because that's what they tell you, the South Pole. If you have a South Pole that happens to be Antarctica that's engulfing your plane or encircling or encompassing your plane, all right, that doesn't even make sense. How does a pole wrap around a pole? That's not a pole anymore. That's a ring. So then you have to explain, where does the magnetism work? How is it magnetic at that point? You understand? It doesn't make sense. But they can only do this to people that don't understand simple science. You learn simple science, that's not possible. Hold on. Wait a minute. Then you ask them why they don't have a model. That'll probably explain it, because the shit don't make sense. You can't make a flat earth model. It doesn't make sense. Because then you got to, where are the poles? So then you have to tell me that the whole top of the flat earth is the North Pole and the whole bottom of the flat earth is the South Pole. That don't make sense. So the whole okay, so then why do we have a west and the east? How does this work? Where's the west and the east at? In the compass, you tell me, all the compasses point to the north. Okay, that's what the fuck they were supposed to do. Do you know why they made them? They were supposed to do that. What do you think they was for? To tell time? It's a compass. It's to help you figure. First of all, they were all closer to the North Pole. Those people who were navigating that plane. So then, okay, let's deal with it. How do you have an east and a west? Why is there a northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, west and eastern? Why? So then you say, well, all these people believe in flat earth this long, nobody ain't proved it? Nobody's proved it. And then what do they resort to? It goes back to square one. We don't have to prove it. You don't want to prove it because it's just a belief. It's a belief system. It becomes a religion. Everybody wears the same thing, have conventions, talk about it, make YouTube videos.
Is it?
What?
Is it?
What's it? What are you talking about, bro?
Is it? Because I'm about to go back out. Dash, if you need me to stay tonight, I would.
While I'm on live? You gonna ask me this while I'm on live? What the hell do people got going on, bro? yeah, so that's the thing. I'm gonna have to get out here, y'all. There's a lot of shit going on, bro. Come on, bro. And I be telling people, don't do that shit, bro. This shit is important to me. So they don't have a model. I ain't even gonna hold you. I'm blown. I gotta get out here. I'm gonna talk to y'all in a little bit. Peace and love.